As we continue reviewing movies and television that bring us cheer, it felt right to review a few of the classics, which this time meant a rewatch of the romantic anthology movie Love Actually, which stars many stars and tells many stories about love. And of course, what could bring more cheer than falling in love on Christmas? I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right, this is Ronald, and I'm on the couch after watching Love Actually, written and directed by Richard Curtis, starring Hugh Grant, Liam Neeson, Colin Firth, Laura Linney, Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Keira Knightley, Martine, McCutcheon, Bill Nighy, Rowan Atkinson. And I'll stop there because if I list the entire cast of this movie, it'll be longer than the review itself. This movie has an enormous cast. It has stars great and small. It has huge movie stars playing bit roles. Let me back up. So Love Actually came out in 2003. And in 2003, it might have been late 2003. But at the time I was a sophomore in college. And I remember my friend Preston is the one who suggested that I should watch it. He was like, you should watch it. It's pretty good. Watched it back then. Young, impressionable kid. Thought it was a great romantic movie. Really liked it. Loved watching it with girls because made you seem like you had a soft spot, whatever. Again, I was a young, impressionable 19-year-old kid. Very long time ago. Might have been 20. I don't know. Love Actually is a movie with several threads all about love and the different way that folks love, and unrequited love and romantic love and, friendships. And they all it's mostly romantic love. Let's be honest. There's only like really one friendship story in here, but they're all intertwined stories. They're only intertwined because everybody lives near each other and everybody knows each other. They all live in England and they all know each other and they're all connected in weird ways. There's neighbors, there's relatives, all of that. And everything I'm describing, if you've seen Love Actually, you should understand why it's kind of difficult to describe as a movie. It's really just a Christmas romance movie. That's what it is, with a bunch of different threads. And if you're like me and you're in your mid 30s and you saw this movie in your late teens, early 20s, you'll probably have the same journey with this movie that I've had, which is there was a time in my life when I loved this movie. I watched it all the time. I showed it to every woman I was interested in at the time and, really liked it, tear up at some scenes, find, some things crazy emotionally great about it. But now I haven't watched it. This was the first time I'd watched it in about 8 years, maybe 8-9 years. I purposefully stopped watching because I remember the last time I watched it, it just felt, there was something about it that I was like, I can't put my finger on it, but something's wrong. Like there's something wrong. I don't know what it is and I can't put my finger on it. And I don't even know if I discovered it after rewatching it now. I do know that this movie has some problematic scenes. It has problematic lines. It has problematic depictions of what is and not okay when it comes to love and pursuit of a person that you love or, of an object of your interest, if you will. But I think the sappiness of the movie is what endears so many people to this movie. And plus, it's so attached to Christmas. This did not have to be a Christmas movie, but making it a Christmas movie makes it a lot more palatable to have these types of stories all happening at once. And I believe the same people who made this also made Valentine's Day, which is another romantic anthology story, and New Year's Eve, which again is another romantic anthology story. And I remember one of the first things I thought upon this watching this movie was thinking, this probably would have been better if it had been a Netflix television series. I think I'm sitting here watching and I was like, this was way before its time. And Modern Love did a series like this where they just had one season of a bunch of different romantic stories, or a bunch of different stories based in love, but not necessarily romantic love, but just a bunch of different stories based in love. And I thought they did a better job. Granted, now they have the advantage of coming out in like 2019 and having, a lot of source material to choose from. But I think something like Love Actually would have benefited from having clear-cut storylines, all separated, that are not intertwined, that yes, could all happen around Christmas, and yes, could have some sort of culminating event at the end, but all being entirely separate of each other. Because watching this movie, it just feels so disjointed, and it feels like they try to make it thematically all the same because it's all love and they're all in this Christmas world. But a lot of these stories just don't really interconnect as well as I think the writer thought that it did, except for the fact that people had connections with each other. They were friends, relatives, what have you. It's weird because this movie has been a part of my life for many years. Again, since, 17 years. I saw the movie probably in 2004. It came out in 2003. I probably saw it in 2004. So just, almost 17 years this movie has been a part of my life. And I'm watching it now and I don't know how many more times I'll watch this. I watched it a lot. I bought it on DVD. It was an annual Christmas movie watch. And then I stopped, and I feel like the same creeping feeling that I feel now, which is that it just feels like it's so into the idea of this syrupy, super romantic, almost toxically romantic depiction of what love is and what, to pine after someone is, and what I don't know. And I might also not be in the greatest headspace to be watching this movie right now, because I'm sure there's other people that watch it and it feels light and fluffy for them. But there's just some heinous things that happen in this movie. There's a guy who's essentially about to cheat on his wife. There's a woman who has a brother with mental illness, and that's like destroying the rest of her social life. And I say social life, and I don't mean that lightly, but she spends so much time doting on her brother, who's in an institution, that it's kind of sucking away her opportunities to have agency over the rest of her life, which that just feels very sad. There's a guy dealing with grieving the death of his wife and still trying to take care of his stepson, which I think about that when I saw that, as a old teenager watching that, and I remember, wonder what the dynamic is there. I'd like to see more about the dynamic between him adopting his stepson, which I thought was interesting and fine. But yeah, there's so many, different little threads in here. There's a guy whose partner is cheating on him with his brother, and he has to leave town to go write a book, and then falls in love with his housekeeper, which at first, it seems like a romantic story, but I remember watching it and being like, man, there's just some messed up things, like, that you're billing as serendipitous, but don't really feel that serendipitous. They just kind of feel like people making the best of whatever circumstances they're in. There's a lot of fat shaming in this movie. A lot of fat shaming. There's a woman in this movie who named Natalie, who is working for the prime minister. And the joke is that she's fat, and she's not fat. And even if she were, it should not, that should not disqualify her from seeking love or being a romantic interest in someone. But sitting here watching, they're just like, oh, she's fat. And I'm just like, I know it's not a joke that they're saying, because it almost felt like comical that they were saying this person who is not fat at all is fat. But there's jokes like that throughout the movie about people just being fat. Oh, this person's fat, my fat manager, all of that. So it's for people who have seen Love Actually, I'm sure you guys are like yelling at me right now and yelling at your radios being like, what? This movie's great. I love watching it, whatever. But for those of you who haven't seen it, I don't know if you have to see it. It kind of has fallen down to me, and become like, watching it now, I'm just like, this lines up next to all of the Hallmark movies, all of the Netflix, like cheap movies, Christmas movies. It falls right next to them thematically, because it's just a bunch of sappy love stories. Now, that being said, some of these sappy love stories, they still get me. Like, we get to the end of this, there's a few scenes in here where I'm just like, ugh, y'all got me. There's a kid chasing after his elementary school crush in an airport that just always, with the music swelling, always gets me every time. There's that same scene of that guy who falls in love with his housekeeper that learns a language for her, that he's marching over to get her. These grand gestures they're doing, they get me. I am definitely like a romantic old soul. Like, I love deeply, I love hard, and seeing stuff like this automatically rings all my bells. But the part of me that's become way more cynical is watching this being like, man, I would love a more subtle love story. I love a love story that doesn't just like bash you over the head and be like, yeah, that's right, do what you would for the one that you love. I don't know why they're a rock band, but I just would love to see more like, just subtle love stories that aren't just quite so bashing, because I feel like a lot of the reasons why I have like messed up views, or the reasons why I'm such romantic, is because I've watched so many movies and I assume, that things are going to work out, and the optimism and all those things mixed together. I'm just like, yeah, it's going to be all right. Going to find the love of my life. I don't know why it's a rock band, but still. Okay, this is going off the rails, but yeah, I don't know. It's Love Actually it's a classic. It's become a Christmas classic. And I think it romanticizes the idea of like being unrequited love and all that. So I think thematically, it's fine. If you want to watch something like that, I'm sure a lot of people love it. And just, if you're not an overthinker like me and you won't look too deep into it, it'll be perfect, for you. But for others, if you just don't feel like all that right now, this just might not be the movie for you. It's extremely Christmassy, but it dives into like the super commercial aspects of Christmas, which is again tying Christmas to romantic love and then buying gifts and doing stuff. It leans in that way. Now, one thing I want to note about the cast is that, like I stated earlier, there are a bunch of well-known, very popular actors now who are playing bit roles in this movie. I mean, this movie, it stars the top build cast. Again, you have Liam Neeson in there. You have Hugh Grant at his height in there. You got Laura Linney. You got Emma Thompson. And those are, I mean, again, you can just stop there, but Colin Firth is in it. Those are all the people at the top build people. But there's people in this movie. Keira Knightley's in it. There's people in this movie who, and I'm laughing because Alan Rickman's in it. Completely forgot about Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman shows up and I was like, I forgot you were in this movie. But there's three people I want to note that are in this movie that are like way down the page, but are like all major stars now. Chiwetel Ejiofor plays Peter, who is that is not a big role. He's playing a guy whose best friend is in love with his wife, which is ridiculous. But this was the first movie I ever saw Chiwetel Ejiofor in, and since then he's become a huge star. Andrew Lincoln, you might know him as Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. Again, this was the first thing I saw him in. Then later I saw him in Walking Dead, and I only know him as Rick Grimes now. Like, watching him in this, I'm just like, this just doesn't seem right. And then the one I like the most is Martin Freeman. Martin Freeman, who is he has been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's been The Hobbit. He's been in all kinds of movies. Like Martin Freeman, you've seen him around, and he's probably as big a star as the biggest stars in this movie when this movie came out. Like Hugh Grant and the rest of them, he's as big and as bankable as the rest of them now. So this movie, when you think about the relationship to Hollywood and 6 degrees of connections from this movie to other movies, even the little kid who's running after oh man, I'm not gonna remember this guy's names. I'm gonna have to look it up. But he's been in Game of Thrones. He's been in The Maze Runner. He's been in Thomas Brody. Thomas Brody is his name. He's been in The Queen's Gambit. Gambit is probably his most recent, the recent thing that he's been in. So lots of stars, like little known stars before they were really stars, are in this movie, and yeah, I think that's probably one of the more interesting parts about watching this, is being like, oh, they're in this. Oh, they're in this. And then there's like these cameos from American. January Jones is in this movie. Denise Richards is in this movie. Eliza Cuthbert is in this movie. There's just so many stars. That's why it's just hard to name all of them at the beginning in the cast. But that was enjoyable. Like saying, oh, you were in this. Oh, you were in this. Oh, you were in this. That's fun. But that doesn't necessarily make up for the thematic problems that I've mentioned before. So I mean, it's not bad. And if you've seen it a while ago, I'd encourage you to give it another watch and just see how it holds up in your memories. Like how does it hold up now? For me, this is a 2.5 star movie, probably 2.5 of 5 stars. Like I don't hate it, but I don't really like it either. There's parts of it that feel very nostalgic and nice to me, but there's other parts where I'm just like, I think they could do this again. Now, what I will say is that I would love for them to remake this through the lens of 2020 as a Netflix series. So I would love for that to happen. I don't know how much influence Leaving the Theater has, but if somebody's listening, let's go into the Love Actually remake the series business. But anyways, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of ohitsBigRon Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other ohitsBigRon Studios shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ohitsBigRon. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, check out our sister show, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon, but until then, I'll be here on the couch